Hello everyone and welcome back to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah and today we're going to tackle some digital clutter. I'm calling this the great unsubscribe or the great unfollow, but it really doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Recently, I was getting gradually more irritated as I was looking at my subscription feed, specifically on YouTube. I felt like it was a bit outdated. Personally, I'm not really into watching YouTube shorts. Not really a dramatic take, just not my personal preference. And I realized that my YouTube watching patterns had changed a lot over the years. I used to maybe watch like 10 to 15 videos a day, especially when I was still teaching, and I think I needed it more so to unwind after a tough day. And these days, probably I only watch 3 to 4 videos per day, and that kind of depends upon my favorite creators' uploading schedules and whatnot. So I realized I needed to do a big declutter of my YouTube subscriptions, and so I thought I would take you along with me. And I'm also going to be decluttering accounts that I follow on Instagram, which is the only other social network that I personally enjoy using and use. I have some things going for business, but I don't actually use those personally. And I want to also say that you can apply these tips if you are also unsubscribing from email newsletters. If you've ordered something from a company, or in my case, if you've donated to an organization, sometimes they'll continually send you emails, and it's important to reflect about what emails we need as well. And I think the why of doing this is not only that it can save you more time, because you're not as likely to be consuming this content that maybe is not as relevant to you, and you don't have to scroll through as much, but you'll be able to get to the good stuff better. I do think there's merit in watching YouTube videos or consuming content in other ways. There's some really cool accounts, and I know for me, it's one of the ways I grow. I try to push myself out of my comfort zone and learn more about different topics that I don't know as much about. But when some of that stuff is buried in our feed or our subscriptions tab, whatever it is, we're less likely to be able to really get in there and learn more. First, I'll share 5 general tips that can help you in a mass unsubscribe or unfollowing effort that you might be undertaking. And then I'll show you specific types of accounts that I am choosing to unsubscribe from in case that helps you kind of connect to your own life what maybe you don't need to follow anymore. Let's jump in. The first tip is to keep a just-in-case document of some sort. Now, when we're decluttering physical items, we don't want to be holding on to things just in case. That's something that we want to try to overcome. But with digital decluttering, it's a little bit different. You might feel unsure about unsubscribing or unfollowing from someone because you might be afraid that you'll forget what the name of the account was, that sort of thing. So as an option, if you're finding yourself getting stuck like, I don't really need to consume this content, but I don't want to lose it forever, just write it down or type it out, the name of the account. You could include a link, but I think the name of the account's better, especially if people change their name a little bit, then that link might break. I've chosen not to do this personally, but this can be a great step if you are afraid of forgetting about different accounts, but you realize you don't need them regularly. Tip number 2 is to not use this as an opportunity to watch content. We want to make sure we stay focused. So if you're going through YouTube subscriptions, for instance, and you discover that you missed a video or two that look very interesting to you, don't watch them now because that's going to sidetrack your progress. Make a note of it or plan to watch them later, but finish the task of going through the subscriptions while you're focused on it, and then you'll be able to enjoy that content much more later when it's easier to find. My third tip is to be very honest with yourself as you're going through this. Think about who you actually watch or the type of content you actually value and engage with. There's a lot of fantasy self topics that we might subscribe to because we feel like we should versus what we actually use. For instance, when I was in more of a YouTube fitness video phase, we have a gym membership now and I prefer like lap swimming and that sort of thing. But when I was trying to consume content for, fitness videos on YouTube, I think I subscribed to maybe like 10 different channels that were doing that, but I found that there were only 3 of those creators that I actually did their videos. So easy to unsubscribe from the rest of them. So I think that's important to be realistic with yourself. It's also important to understand that there's a lot of great educational channels out there. I think of one of them is TED videos or TED Talks. I have been subscribed to them for years. And I would say I only watch probably about 1 or 2 per year. Because I'm pretty busy, I don't choose to click on it. So rather than maintain that subscription and see a new video coming up in my subscriptions tab every day, I just decided, you know what, I'll never forget TED Talks because they're very, they're a wide-reaching channel. For me, it's just not something I'm actively choosing to watch. And we'll get into more about this as I show you the types of content that I'm unsubscribing from. Tip number 4 is let's keep it positive with those good vibes only. If there are any accounts that you maybe are hate watching or subscribed to still, and you have resentment towards them, or you're subscribing to them just to judge them, I would unsubscribe from those and just remove that negativity from your life. I know there's a couple accounts, I wouldn't say it was ever hate watching, but I definitely had some accounts where I was a big fan and then they changed dramatically and like maximum clickbait, and I was just, so irritated and disappointed, but it's like, why didn't I just unsubscribe? I didn't watch their stuff anymore. So I think it's important for us to really keep it positive and focused on the people that we actually care about watching. My last tip, or I guess thought process here before we get into the decluttering process, is thinking about those who have stopped posting or paused posting. And I will say I am much more likely to keep a subscription if someone has stopped posting or paused posting compared to those who post regularly. And my thought process is on that. If it is still something I'm interested in, or I would like to ideally keep watching, it's important for me to maintain that subscription because I don't know if and when they'll ever come back. And of course, many of them won't, but I am not the type to just say, oh, you're taking a break from YouTube, unsubscribe. Because the thing is, if I want to keep watching their content, I need to be subscribed to know when it happens. So I think that's a clarification. For me, I really wanted to target the channels that are posting all the time and really cluttering up my subscriptions feed. So I just wanted to give that clarification. I know this tip also sometimes comes out of how hilarious it is to me when people who have been subscribers, like if they hear I'm taking a week off or a break and they think that I'm done forever, which I know some YouTubers do. A break turns into no more videos ever again, but then they unsubscribe and they're like, oh, I didn't realize you were back. It's like, well, you unsubscribed, so how would you know? Anyway, that's a little tangent. Let's get into the types of content and what my situation looks like. Also, as a quick disclaimer, I'm going to show little clips of a few of the channels I'm unsubscribing from. There is no ill will on those channels at all. I am hoping to cut my subscriptions down in half. So a lot of channels are going to get cut. These were just a few bigger channels just to show some types of content. I'm pretty sure none of these channels even know I exist. So I specifically chose them for the video purposes here. And it's because I just wasn't watching their content at all anymore, or some other factor. I've got my computer here as we shift into this next phase. So for this, I'm on my subscriptions page, and a lot of people go to the YouTube homepage. I personally don't do that. I have my subscriptions page bookmarked, so I don't need to see other people's stuff, just I can focus on my subscriptions. Obviously, everyone's different. I know that no matter what platform you're on, they're trying to get you to consume more content. And so I really only go to the homepage if for whatever reason I'm not satisfied with the videos I have, or there's not really new videos and I need to watch something. So that being said, I'm on my subscriptions tab, and if you scroll, so for me on my computer, it's on the left side and it will say show blank more for the number of subscriptions that you have. And you can see some subscriptions here. Now, when you click on it, I'm just clicking on the Financial Diet here. I do not plan on unsubscribing from them. I love that channel. As you can see here, you can hover over that subscribed button, and then it will be able to unsubscribe if you click on it. So it will give you a little confirmation. Do you want to unsubscribe? I say yes if I'm actually going to unsubscribe, etc. So that's just a little overview of how this works. And I'm going to walk you through the types of videos we're looking at unsubscribing from. So I will say first, my starting point was 373 channels. It's been a while since I've gone through these numbers. So for me personally, what am I unsubscribing from? First, I'm unsubscribing from business-inspired YouTube channels or channels teaching you how to make YouTube videos. For me, I haven't been watching business content generally for a couple years now. It's not really relevant to me, and as you've known from previous videos, I'm really trying to scale back my efforts and time with Abundantly Minimal and really reduce just the time spending on it because it hasn't performed well for me while my other business is booming. So for me, I'm not trying to really, fight for YouTube. So I'm unsubscribing from those. Next up, musicians that I generally don't listen to. As music tastes change, there are certain artists that maybe are no longer active or I personally don't listen to as much anymore. I also do personally use Spotify now for listening to songs, and I actually really enjoy the setup of Spotify and how you can follow your favorite artists there, and then it will put their new stuff on like a release radar every week. So I really look forward to that every week. I love listening to music. I'm always listening to music. So for me, I don't need as much on YouTube anymore. Number 3, this one might be a surprise, but I'm actually unsubscribing from a lot of minimalist content. I think earlier on, especially when I was giving more focus to Abundantly Minimal, I very much wanted to be a part of the minimalist community, and I wanted to know what was going on, who's posting what, and all of that. But the honest truth is I don't watch minimalist content at all. I don't. So maybe I watch like 1 in 20 of someone's videos, like a minimalist channel's videos. But for me, number 1, when I used to watch minimalist videos, I would sometimes feel a little like awkward if I really liked an idea someone mentioned. I didn't want to take their idea. I didn't want to steal their idea for a video and pretend it was my own. And of course, you can always give credit, and I often did. But I felt like if I was consuming too much of these other people's ideas, are the ideas that I'm sharing in my videos actually, just a copy of something else, or are they actually original, helpful ideas? So for me, honestly, the last probably 2 years, I haven't watched hardly any minimalist videos. I haven't participated in some of those like minimalist trends, and I just don't need to be aware, I think, of what other channels are posting, especially if I'm not watching them. And again, there's no hard feelings there. It's not relevant to me anymore. Actually, where I can be most helpful rather than just watching other minimalist channels and hearing those ideas is actually me living my life and kind of figuring out different minimalist approaches based upon different life experiences and lessons I learn in other fields, because that's where we can get some new and fresh ideas, I think. This one's not anything crazy, but as some of you know, Jake and I fostered a rabbit earlier in, I guess, last winter. And we followed a lot of rabbit videos for tutorials and to figure out what we were doing. And that's not really relevant anymore. Cooking and recipe channels are also a thing that I'm unsubscribing from many. I feel like if I'm not actually making recipes from these channels or getting that inspiration or even just watching these channels, there's no point. I know sometimes I was subscribing to different people because, oh wow, that was a really great meal prep video they did, or this is going to inspire me to ... But most of them don't. After maybe those initial videos, I haven't really continued watching some of these channels. And for me, at least, it's important to follow not just general cooking channels, but those that relate more to my food values and how I actually cook, just because that's the most practical to my life. And I encourage you to do the same. I sort of mentioned this earlier on, but if you've got fantasy self channels that you follow because you feel like they have their lives together, or you feel like you should watch them, but you're not, go ahead and unsubscribe. With these, if we're not actually consuming the content and implementing the ideas, there's no point in keeping that subscription active. And also, too, the longer I've been actually in business myself, especially in content creation, I realize how many lies there are or just exaggerations in content. So if someone, is filming a really cool like morning routine or one of those types of videos, it's likely enhanced, if not completely exaggerated, and something that's done not every day, or maybe even that's the only day it's done. So I think it's important for us to be mindful of that as we're going through, or they probably have some additional help. Seventh type of content I'm unsubscribing from is entertainment related videos that I'm no longer watching. I think for me, I often viewed like YouTube channels or content I was subscribed to as like, it should be educational. And I think I've really stepped back and said, you know what? Oftentimes it can just be about fun. But that being said, there's content that I just don't necessarily come back to, or entertainment channels where there's a phase where I'm interested in them and then no longer. So you can unsubscribe from those. And then the last category I'll be unsubscribing from is content that has evolved away from where it was when I first subscribed that is no longer relevant, or maybe they're even just posting too many shorts, YouTube shorts, or even maybe they've stopped posting. As I was starting to go through some of these channels here, I was very surprised by how many channels had just stopped posting, and I was no longer really interested in the content. So it definitely made me feel less bad about some of my challenges with, questioning my future on YouTube. And like I said, personally, I'm not a fan of YouTube shorts like at scale. I would like them better if I could just see the shorts from people I subscribe to, but I think there's a couple times where I started watching them and then it kind of sucked me in a little bit, and also I didn't necessarily love everything I was seeing. So for me, it's not something I really want to do much of. So those are just the general categories I'm looking for. So I've already started going through these, but this is definitely going to be a tedious process, so please hold, and I'll be right back. Okay. I took some time and I went through the remaining channels. So just to review, we started with 373 subscriptions. After going through all the channels in my subscription feed, I was able to get that down to 193. So that was my first pass. And then for my second pass, I just went on my subscriptions tab, or the subscriptions page where you see all the videos, and then I used that to scroll through. That's more so for people who had posted recently to see what else I was able to unsubscribe from, or what else I no longer needed that I might have missed going through that big list. And in doing that, I was able to find 16 additional channels to unsubscribe from, which left me with 177. So I reduced the number over half. Now, I do want to say, you could certainly use a numeric goal here if you want. I want to try to reduce this, a certain percentage. For me, I wasn't needing to do that just because, I wanted to maintain certain channels that are generally inactive, whether that's artists who maybe only release new music once a year, or just maybe friends or people who I've interacted with over the years that I still wanted to support. There's certainly cases where people are not super active that I still wanted to follow. Also, I applied the same steps to going through Instagram, both my personal Instagram, which is the abundantly minimal one, and the Instagram that's for the Teachers Pay Teachers business, Mr. and Mrs. Social Studies. And so on my personal Instagram, I started out following 276 people, and then I ended with 230. So I didn't make as many dramatic cuts there. I do think what is a little bit interesting comparing the platforms is with YouTube subscriptions, people don't actually know whether you are subscribed to them or not. Whereas on Instagram, they do know, or they can tell much more easily. So with that in mind, there were some where maybe I unsubscribed from the YouTube channel, but I did not unfollow on Instagram. But that's also just, the nuances of the platforms, and also I think the aspect of, the relationships. And also I think there's a lot of really cool people and accounts that I follow on Instagram, let's say, that don't have YouTube channels and whatnot. Since a YouTube channel is a lot more work, I'm not surprised a lot of people have left YouTube to do other platforms. That being said, my Teachers Pay Teachers business Instagram was at 397 people we are following, and then I now have it at 350. And with that one also, I think there's more of a community element. We connect with a lot of other social studies and history teachers there. And so for us, we like to see those accounts, and it's not as intrusive as like on my YouTube subscriptions page. So that's just an example of kind of how I did the great unsubscribe. For me, I'm really excited when I look at my updated subscriptions tab. I'm just happier that I'm seeing more of the content that I want to see, and I'll be less likely to miss what actually matters. I will also follow up and say that I do not use any notifications on either of these platforms, just because anytime there's a notification that comes in, it can take us out of whatever focus we have. And also, I like to have agency over what I choose to give my attention to. So that's just a little added layer here, because I know a lot of people do notifications, and also why you'll never hear me say, hey, put your notifications on for my videos. The last thing I think I'll say before I end this video is that this was actually a video I wanted to make for a long time, but for a while I think I was too insecure that, well, if I tell people to unsubscribe from things, won't they unsubscribe to me? And I didn't want that to happen. But I think in general, maybe it's because, like I've shared, this YouTube channel has just done so badly and is no longer really a viable aspect of business for me, that it's like, if people want to unsubscribe, they'll unsubscribe. And also, chances are, if you made it here, if you're one of the few people who actually made it, to this point in the video, you actually do get value out of these videos and you're not going to just, walk away. But the thing is, no hard feelings, if I think I've just chilled out about that a lot at this point compared to before. So it happens anyway. Every time I post a video, there's like 30 people who leave. So it's just the natural ebb and flow of YouTube content, I guess, or any other social media content. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you choose to take this challenge, feel free to leave in the comments below what your stats were, maybe what you started with and what you ended with. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. We'll see you then. Bye.